Okay. So I've never spoken to anybody here before. So I'm not sure where everybody is energy wise and consciousness wise. So if what I say resonates with you and you feel it in the heart, then go with it. If you don't like it, ignore it. Because some of the things I say may be controversial, and it would depend where you're coming from. So to start with, in order to really get moving on the consciousness level, you have to connect with your inner guides. You have to be able to talk to your guides, talk to your angels. The way I do that is with kinetic testing. So at a different time, I'll teach people how to get in touch with testing their innate, which is their higher self. And the way we do that is you stand up and you face north and you would say yes. And if you're grounded and hydrated and in tune, your body will rock forward. If you say no, your body will rock backwards. So if I said, I am Judy, my body would rock backwards. If I said, my name is Dave, my body would rock forwards. And I do this to talk, and you can use a pendulum also. But pendulums you can influence a little bit easier than your body. So you can feel your body rock forward and back when you talk to your higher self. So the whole goal is to get out of our heads and to connect with our heart and our pineal. So it's actually a triad. Our mind, which is the ego, and that keeps us safe. Our heart, which is our true self. And the pineal is like a radio beacon. That's what connects us to the higher realms. And everybody can channel, everybody can do this. So I see we have Matt joining us, or Matthew joining us. So back in 2012, we hit a milestone energy-wise in the world. So it started basically in '89 when the USSR fell. And then in 2001, when 9/11 hit, there was a change in compassion in the world. It wasn't just the United States, but the world actually changed energy-wise, where everybody in the world was compassionate because of the loss and watching what was going on and all the people helping. And that brought us beyond a milestone of Armageddon and losing. We would have been the fifth group of humanoids to end their lifetimes at that point. It was the end of a 26,000 year cycle. So we made it. Compassion wise, we're in uncharted territory, and humans have never been on Earth in this part of the galaxy, which means that we are actually ascending right now. So if you're open to it, you can use all these tools of the ascension to grow and change. The human body is not designed to only live for 80 years. It's designed to live hundreds of years. But through food and programs, we are programmed that certain things happen at certain ages. So this is what people wanted to know, because everybody on CC was moaning and groaning about aches and pains and growing and birthdays and things like that. And when we do stuff like that, we're fitting into society's norm. So the idea is to connect with the higher energies, connect with your higher self, and then start talking to yourselves. So I'm going to first talk to a little bit about the energy and light and dark in the world right now, and then I'll get into actually how to talk to yourselves and go that avenue. So one thing that people have to realize is the scientists will argue with me. They're going to say there's only 23 strands of DNA. There's 24 strands of DNA. They can't read the 24th strand yet because it is in a different realm. It is there, it is open, and we're getting downloads. If any of you ever hear high-pitched squeals in your ear that suddenly comes in like it sounds like a mosquito, and then it comes in and then fades away, that is
I get that all the time.
That's a download in your DNA. Your DNA is changing. So in the quantum realm, a lot of things are there, but we can't just see it. But soon, the consciousness will change enough that we will see the 24th strand of DNA, and we'll start seeing quantum energy, just like we'll see the color of gravity. Gravity has a color. We don't know that because we can't see that. There's a spectrum there of that we can't see because we only see that narrow band because we're still in the linear world and we have to get out of the linear world. Einstein didn't like the quantum physics because he called it chaos because it was too hard to imagine. So as we grow into as we ascend, we're not going to go from the physical world to the causal world or any of the etheric world. We're going to go to all. So all of a sudden it's going to happen all at once. So you're going to have people on different levels and different mindsets. So what you have to think about is we don't go from A to B to C to D in the quantum world. We go from A to all of them. And we have to talk to our bodies with that type of thought pattern that is slightly different. So this is where it could be a bit of a stretch. Just so you know where I'm coming from, I'm a coach, but I'm really a healer. I do theta wave healing. So I reprogram people, I clear blocks, I clear entities, I clear buildings, I give unconditional love. I can do, let's just say, energy type healings, like the violet flame, if you've ever heard of that. I can't say I'm a healer because that would be the medical practitioner, but I work in the energy world. So I learned to do that and expand beyond that because I talk to my guides on a regular basis and they guide me on the directions to go. So about a year or so ago, I started learning different phases. So I don't know if any of you know who Lee Carroll is or Cryon. So I listen to Cryon a lot. It resonates with me and it seems to fit the patterns of synchronicities and how things happen. So what we see in the world right now is the darkness losing and fighting and the light coming out and more lightness growing. And as the lightness comes, we're going to see more and more children being born, remembering who they were and what they were in past lifetimes. So the children being born since 2012 have more wisdom than the people that were born before that. So you're going to see children teaching their parents, just like in the Middle East. Kids are being born, not putting up with fighting anymore. They don't want to fight. There's no reason to it. So as the generations proceed, it'll get better and better because the world's going to lift up. Now, everything we think, feel, and do is recorded in the earth called the crystalline grid. So as if there's negativity, the grid records it. If there's positivity, the grid records it. So if we do uplifting things, that uplifts the grid, and then the next child being born will actually have a higher vibrating DNA because of the crystalline grid of where they're born. So ultimately, kids are going to be in about 100 years, they'll be living to be 300 years old, or not that far away from it. And
That'll be nice.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice, and ultimately it'll be 900 years. But to be and we're going to keep progressing because eventually we're going to become like the Palladians, who are our parents. But the Palladians right now, they don't need ships. They just think of where they want to go. But it took them 1,000,000 years to get there. So that could be mankind and say on the way to 1,000,000 years, or it could be the 1,000 years. It all depends on us, on our growth. We're on the optimum pattern right now. So that touches it, the basics. So when you think that you can't do something, that you get caught up in drama, you get caught up in family drama, that's lowering your vibration. If you go out and you step away from that and don't get attached to all the drama, it's like the news. Okay, if you watch the news, you can go crazy, especially being on CC, you know, most of his lies on top of it. So don't engage, don't attach your emotions to it. Don't partake in that. What you have to do is you have to just observe and step back and let it go. So how do we use this energy to change ourselves? First of all, I don't like to say how old I am. And I wish I learned this 30 years ago, just so you know. But it was fairly recently. When you say how old you are, as in a set age, you are conforming to society's perception of that age. So if somebody goes, yeah, I'm turning 50, da, 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 well, they just mean the 50 is a bad thing. The other thing is that if you complain and focus on your aches and pains and then all the problems you have, you're now asking more of that to come. Because whatever you speak is your truth.
It's reaffirming.
Yes, you're affirming. And so if you speak things that you don't want, and the worst thing you can say is I don't, because the universe doesn't know the difference between I don't and I want. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. In January of 2010, I bought a car. In December of 2009, I started looking, and I said, I don't want silver. I'll take any color but silver. I'll take any color but silver. I'll take any color but silver. And when I found my Lincoln, it was silver. Right. So then I drove a silver car for the next 10 years, just because I gave my order to the universe by saying, I don't want. So if we don't want, say, wrinkles, or we don't want to grow old, or we don't want aches and pains, we have to say, I want smooth skin. I want to feel like I'm 35, or I feel like I'm 35. And that'll change our perception. So if we think, I'll give you a little story. I'm going to use the name of the character as Woe, because most of the stories I hear are Woe is the person. Woe is not a man, it's not a woman, he's just Woe. And Woe is working on a ship. And Woe's great at his job, and he takes care of the inside of the ship, and the food is always prepared, and everything's clean and organized, and everything's set up. And he knows the captain's up on the deck taking care of the ship. So he takes care of the downstairs, and he never goes upstairs and checks out the ship. So the ship's going around as years, and Woe's been working on the ship for years and years and years. And suddenly one day he gets the urge to go up on the deck and see what's going on. He doesn't know where the urge came from, but it was a strong urge. So he goes upstairs, up on the deck, and he realizes there's no captain there. The ship is sailing in a circle, but it's making this giant circle, round and round and round, and it's getting closer and closer to the rocks. And he's looking at the rocks coming, and he's trying to figure out what to do. So he takes the wheel, and he steers away from the rocks and sails away to safety. Well, the ship is our body, and woe is us with our body. And if we don't give our body commands, we're going to just do whatever the ship will randomly do by itself. And then you add in society's programs, and then suddenly you start fitting society's norms. So what you have to do is actually talk to your cells. So you would say something like, cells, listen up. I am in command. This is your leader. I want you to stop aging. And from this moment on, you will restart counting backwards. Or when I first heard it, it was skip every other day. All right. And I'm like, well, if you can skip every other day, why can't you go backwards? So I say, I program them to go backwards, make me younger, because every 7 days we have all new cells anyway. A couple of the cells take a little longer than that, but the majority of them are new every 7 days. So why not tell them that to be younger, to be stronger, to be healthier? And as you say this, then you say, I am in command. So be it. And you talk to your body. Just like when you're doing things like you want something to happen. Now, I learned to tap, and I modified tapping, because if you go to a tapper, they'll always start this way, and then they'll go to one side, and then they'll do the other side. I do them both at the same time. So when I go through my tapping, I will say affirmations. And the affirmations are, I am young, I am strong, I am healthy. And you should write down a list of affirmations you're going to do and go through your tapping. So just so you know, the points are the hands, the top of the head, the Tisratil, which is the third eye right here, the temples, under the eyes, under the nose, the chin, right here, which is a grounding point. Eden energy teaches you ground here, and then under the armpits. There's those hot spots that you can feel. Everybody has them. That's the point. And I'll go through a routine of 4 or 5 different tapping regimens every morning, where I go and command what I want. And it could be for your body, or it could be that you want to find a way to make more money. But don't limit it. Just leave it open and let the universe find what you want. Don't say that this is what I want, because you may not get that. There may be something better coming. But if you don't allow that something better to come, you're never going to do it, just like your body health. So talk to your body. Stop talking about your age. Now, if somebody wants to know when I was born, I'll say, sure, I was born in 59. And then I'll leave it at that. And I've seen a lot of my old classmates, honestly, they look like the dead warmed over. And there's just a difference in attitude. But stress beats you up also. So the more stress you absorb and the more stress you hold in, that affects you. So if you've ever read The Secret by Rhonda Burns, she's got a second book called The Power.
It sounds very familiar to like the stuff that you're saying. It's like the law of attraction.
Yeah, it's part of the law of attraction. But what they don't tell you in the law of attraction is you have to envision it and you have to feel it. You can't just say, I want it. You have to envision it. So when I do work on people, I not only make commands, I envision an action happening. So that way it actually happens. Because if I just give a command, it's not going to happen. So there has to be, you have to see something there. So if you close your eyes for a second, you could see something soft. It may not be a rigid picture, because everybody looks for a rigid picture, but sometimes it's like a fog and a picture will come through and you just envision that. And that is you seeing on the other side, because the veil is very strong for a lot of people. Even me, the veil can be strong at times. Other times it opens up wide until the Tisratil actually opens up. So you have to go through and you have to change your perceptions of all this. You have to
How do we get it to open up?
Practice, meditate. I highly recommend meditation. If you can't meditate, find a guided meditation that you like. I'll tell you where to find Kryon. If you go to KryonMasters.com, you can go to all his channels are free. You can't join Healing Wednesday, but Healing Wednesday, which I've been part of for the last 2 years, is the first Monday's free. And on there, he answers questions. He does a short meditation. He talks to a guest. And then at the end, he does a longer guided healing meditation, depending what it is for the month. So you could go and try those meditations. There's a guy named 3 Trees on Facebook, and he does music. And he's like a one-man band, and he kind of does like native type music. And when he doesn't sing per se, but he does sounds. It sounds more like an American Indian and what they would sing. But his stuff lasts an hour and a half. So I don't know where you pick on that, because I only do 15 to 20-minute meditations every day. Just to go to the other side, clear things out, get any healing and stuff working out. And you can do affirmations in your meditation too. And then you're really involved in there, because we can actually go to our higher selves by working through some of these meditations and start working with our higher selves and connecting. And this is all part of it too, is you can say, my intent for this meditation is to heal this. You can call your whatever you believe, whether it's angels, guides, whatever it is that you believe is with you, you can ask them to heal you, or actually command them. You don't, when you ask, like in a prayer, oh, please do this, it doesn't happen. But when I do a clearing, so let's say there's an entity, a pretty bad entity or energy that's attached to somebody, and I'll tell you a quick story so you know that I'm not crazy. I will say, I will command Archangel Michael or Gabriel to come and help me remove this entity. I never do it by myself because you have to name them, and I don't want to hear the name. So I have them name themselves to them. So I had a client who had a couple entities. I cleared him, and he went to his friend's funeral, and his friend was only 35 years old, and he died. And I assume it was a drug overdose type thing. So when he was at the funeral, he touched the friend's head. He doesn't know why, but he reached out and touched his head, and he felt funny about it. And about a week later, he was driving down the road, and he was talking to another friend, a mutual friend of theirs, and he started talking like this friend that had passed. So he thought that was weird, but he was coming to me for sessions. So I picked up on something that was going on. I said, did you pick up another entity? And we started talking, and I tested him, and he had another entity. So I go in and I do the routine to remove this entity. And he looks at me after I did it, and he says, I heard my friend's voice. And he said, no, man, I don't want to go. As I was removing the entity had attached to him. So that was proof that it was not just a figment of my imagination what I was doing, that he actually heard his friend's voice, which was quite interesting. So that was just a confirmation on my part of what was going on. So going back to what we do, our words and our thoughts betray us. We've been conditioned to believe certain things. And when we believe those things, then like 100's a ripe old age. Okay, so if you believe 100 is a ripe old age, then 100's a ripe old age. If you believe you can live to 300, and you command that you're going to live to 300, and you help people, because you can't be selfish in this life. You have to help other people in one way or another, even if it's just being a beacon of light on the way you live life. Then you will then live a longer life. And you can also work on diseases. You can talk to your cells. But when you talk to your cells, you have to sit there and you have to envision it healing. You have to envision it getting better. So I just lost my mother a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't get her out of being a victim of her childhood. And so she manifested all this pain in the end of her life because she wouldn't let it go. So she's holding on to all this pain, and it turned out to be pain in her body. So even all the morphine she was on wasn't enough to kill the pain. So I think she was finally understanding it towards the end there about what it was. Now, if I could figure out how to manifest losing some weight, I will tell everybody and make a fortune. Okay, but that's the only thing. But I've been hearing, I've heard two different things about the weight. One is that it's part of the protection of the ascension, because it makes it a little easier on the body. The other thing that I heard is I'm trying to remember her last name, Dr. Karen, and she was talking that, and this is a little out there for some people, but she was saying, and she's a healer and an MD. She was saying that there is 3 types of water, and the one water is almost like gelatin. And if our blueprint doesn't match our body, if our spiritual blueprint isn't matching the body, you kind of get all this extra padding, shall we say, because it's saying that, oh, you're supposed to be a 7'5" whatever this lifetime, and you're 5'5", so she does this whole thing about meshing your blueprint of the body from past lives to the blueprint of this body during this life. So I just heard that about a week ago, which was quite interesting. So I did a little thing. So we'll see if I change anything, and I'll let everybody know. And then I'll show everybody the link until then. Does this stuff make sense so far?
Yes, absolutely. For me, it does.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just
Yes.
I don't want to
Somewhat.
go off the deep end because again, I haven't talked to any of you before, and I don't know where you are. And sometimes I can get way too woo-woo for people, and I'm used to it. I got friends that I talk woo-woo to, and we say, okay, it's time to talk woo-woo, and other people's eyes just roll in the back of their head. So, but it's true, and it's there, and he's a channel. Just when I don't know if anybody that's going to listen to this doesn't believe in past lives, right? But this has happened twice to me. So when I met my buddy Pete, I started a networking group, and there was 49 people in the networking group at the time. And we had a new member, and he was a painter, and his name was Pete. And Pete and I hadn't talked. All we said was good morning to each other for 2 weeks. And on this particular day, I was speaking because each of us gets to give a 15-minute presentation every so often. And Pete sat next to me. Now, this is synchronicities in life. So what happened was the vice president didn't print off my bio. He gave me a blank sheet, which ticked me off because I purposely have my bio printed out so that I don't have to take my time in the morning when I'm supposed to be networking and write it out. So as I'm filling it out, the last question is always something nobody knows about you. And I got a strong nudge to put down that I practice soul travel, because I've been practicing soul travel since the 90s. So I put down I practice soul travel. So I go and give and Pete sat next to me that day. And Pete's been a close friend since that day. So I finish my talk, the meeting's over, and Pete leans over and looks at me and says, tell me about soul travel. Now, keep in mind, out of the 49 people there, he's the only one that ever asked me about it. Nobody else ever heard it. He was the only one that was tuned into it because his frequency was tuned into that type of stuff. So when you talk to people and they don't look like they hear it, they can't hear it. So there's certain concepts that just certain people can't hear. So he leans over and he says, tell me about soul travel. And there's a wall behind us, just like there's a behind me now. And all of a sudden, before I can answer, he starts looking behind him. And he's looking behind him. And he looks at me and says, did you have a girlfriend that died? I'm like, yeah. And he says, well, she's here now and she has a message for you. And she had died 2 years before. So he goes and gives me the message and all that. And she died in a car crash. Not too far from you, Marie. So I get that, tears are coming down my eyes because it's very emotional. And it was really a 5-year good relationship. And I truly loved her. I love her to this day. And then he goes, she's trying to tell me something about a dog. Did she have a dog? And I'm like, no, she didn't have a dog. And then it dawned on me. He says, well, she wants you to know the dog is with her. My son had a smooth fox terrier that died of lymphoma at 6. And this little dog used to jump in bed with us and try to push me out of bed so he could sleep with Connie. That was her name. And so Murray had died before Connie did. So she wanted me to know about the dog, but Pete knew nothing about me. Absolutely nothing. And he says it happens to him frequently where he'll be talking to somebody and a distant relative will come in and want to channel. And he says sometimes he lets them and sometimes he doesn't. So for me, he did. So he channeled Connie to me, which really set me on where I am today. So this happened in 2016 when he did this channel to me. And so, like, my mom died the 16th of March, and Pete channeled her. She went to visit him because she knew to visit him. And then he called me up and said, yeah, your mama's kind of laughing that she died on your brother's birthday. And I'm like, well, Pete wouldn't have known that it was my brother's birthday if he wasn't talking to mom. So there is truth to all this. There is the reincarnation. There is soul. But what we do is we have victimized ourselves instead of, and I don't want to step on toes, okay? But the fact is that most modern day religions teach us that we are unholy, we're sinners, and we need to ask for forgiveness instead of teaching us that we are connected to God. God is in our DNA, lives through us, knows everything we experience, and back in at source, we're all connected. So we're all connected, every single one of us. So to be prejudiced, to hate anybody or anything is just ridiculous because we're all part of the same energy field. So it's hard to describe because Star Trek had the Borg at one time, and the Borg was all assimilated and everybody followed the same directions. Well, we're kind of like the Borg, but we're not like the Borg. We're individuals, but we're connected like they were back at source. So as we connect to source, and as we take control of our bodies, because our bodies are just here to house us here, because if our higher selves came here, it would explode into light, because the body can't handle the higher self. It can only handle a percentage of us. And that's why some people can have more than one life. Some people, you would think people make up all these names because we're very linear. Humans are very linear, so they want everything in a box, and we're not in a box. And as soon as you step out of the box, then you realize all the possibilities. Have I lost you yet? Is
No.
everybody with me? Okay.
No, I'm with you.
Okay. So to change our lives, we have to change our concept, not put ourselves in a box, and start talking about what we want. Talk to ourselves, talk to our bodies. When I do work on people, I test them to make sure that their cells are good with the changes, their bodies are good with the changes, and that their higher selves are good with the changes before I close out the session, to make sure everything's there. So that means you have to connect to your higher self, you have to talk to your body, and you have to talk to yourselves. And when you talk to the universe, you have to tell them what you want. And we have to stop saying what we don't want. Pay attention to it. Watch how many times during the day you say what you don't want instead of what we want, because we're programmed to be negative instead of positive. It's like the glass half empty versus the glass half full. And Simon's group is part of it, okay? Maybe not in the same direction as other groups, but we are old souls because we don't believe the crap. And an old soul is a soul that's been here 100 times or more. New souls are the ones that you look at and go, what were they thinking? So you have, and a new soul doesn't mean that the soul itself is new, because we all were created at the exact same time. A new soul means that they don't have the life experience to direct them of what they're doing, and you have to kind of let them be themselves. We can't force people to understand. We can't force people to move on with us. So if you're trying to take a family member and get them to change because they're in an old energy system, you can't. You just have to understand that we were all there. So that's pretty much what I was going to talk about this time as a start. Do you have questions? Should I elaborate on anything that I said?
Trying to think. I had questions as we went along, but
Oh, you
I
should have
was
asked.
trying to
All
focus and
right.
listening.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll go back and listen to it and then write my questions down.
right. Okay. Or it might trigger
Very
you.
interesting, though. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that that definitely resonates with me. Um, some of the stuff that I actually do myself now. So
Mhm.
I've healed myself a couple of times for
Good.
sure. Um, on small, small things, but still, maybe I need to branch out to bigger things now. That's what I think.
Yeah. I use this book.
Okay.
Okay, it's great because it usually we manifest stuff in our body that's happening on the energy level. And also, like I sliced my finger open, and then the next day I smashed the backside and it was bleeding. So I had bleeding on both sides. And I'm like, what did that happen for? So I looked it up in the book to see what was bothering me. And it mainly meant that I was stuck somewhere. And I knew exactly where I was stuck
Mm,
between a rock and a hard place with
mhm.
dealing with a family member.
That's for sure.
So
Uh,
I mean, if we can get a group together, I can go on um, more depth and different areas. You know, if we find enough people. I know that they have the CC group, but when I haven't actually listened to what they talk about. I don't know what level they're at on consciousness and life. Have either of you listened to them?
oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
What's CC group?
the
Connecting
Or
conscious.
Mighty Network?
connecting consciousness. There's four of them. One is how come I can't think of his name now all of a sudden?
Simon Park.
Yeah, his wife is on there.
Oh, yeah. Becky?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Becky's on there, and three other people. And I haven't
Is it,
listened to them if they're part of it. You know
is it on
how
Mighty
deep they
Networks?
go, because I can go pretty deep on this stuff if people are interested.
Where would you listen to them? Because are you talking about on the Mighty Networks?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard them.
Okay. How about
I
you,
was
Marie?
just,
Have you ever heard them?
Yeah, because I'm part of the Connecting Consciousness group with Simon Parks.
Well, so am
well,
I.
I think we all are,
Yeah,
but
we all are. But I haven't had the time to sit there and listen to them.
right,
It's
exactly.
never at the
Oh,
right time.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, I have. Yeah, no, it's pretty interesting.
Okay. Do they talk
'Cause
about
it's,
similar topics as this?
Simon's more talking about like what's happening in the world politically right now.
That I've heard, yes.
Yeah, more so than like when we would have our meetings, like our leader would talk about stuff like you're talking about a little bit.
Okay,
Chris, different
right.
topic. Yeah, but I like your topic.
Okay. So I can get deeper into it. If you think of any of the questions that you had, um, shoot me a
I'll
message.
reach out. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And whether I post a written answer or a short video, I can do either, depending if it's a short answer or a long answer. I'm not one for sitting
Okay.
there and writing a lot.
Yeah, I want to go back and listen to this again. And so I
Yeah.
guess you'll post this on our chat.
Yeah, I'm going to post it on the chat for those that
Okay,
missed it.
great.
Okay, and I usually talk for about 45 minutes, and then allow about 15 minutes for question and answer time.
Okay. Well, you did talk about the soul travel. Did you say soul travel?
Yeah,
What you didn't really get into that at all.
no, I
Just
didn't get
mentioned
into it. That's a whole
that's
nother
a whole nother
topic.
level.
But
Yeah.
pretty
Okay.
much when you dream, you're soul traveling.
Oh, well, that
Okay,
makes
so
sense.
so dreaming is soul traveling. You can meditate and soul travel. There's different planes, so we'd have to talk about what's on the different planes. Um, so there's a lot to it, but you can sit there and say, like one time I went to bed, and instead of using the word om to meditate, we use the word you, HU. It's a higher vibration word. So you'd sing it internally or externally, and it brings you to the highest plane you can possibly go. Remember, we're limited to the planes that we can go to based upon us, not any other factors. So some people can only go to the third plane, some people can go to the fifth plane, some people can go into the higher planes. So when I would sing you before going to bed, maybe 3 times, not a lot. And then I'd ask, you can ask the Dream Master or one of your guides to show you whatever you want. So I asked to see the ocean of love and mercy. And what I saw in that dream was, and it was almost instantaneous, is water flowing over the earth and going down the mountains and through the valleys and covering it all. And what that was a metaphor, because remember, the Bible's full of metaphors. And a lot of the stuff that we get is metaphors, so you can't take it literally. The water is the metaphor for spirit, and spirit just covers the earth. And you can ask about solving problems. You can ask
Is
about
this the
past
same as
lives.
astral traveling?
Astral traveling is where you're a little more conscious.
Okay.
It's similar. I've never been able, well, I can't say I've never been able to. When I was a little kid, when I got into a jam or in a scary dream, I would be able to jump and fly out of the situation. But I haven't done that in decades. I wish I never stopped, because there I could fly someplace. Now I have different types of dreams, and I don't always remember all my dreams because I know I'm working. A lot of times I'm with a similar group of people and I'm hiding from other people because we're doing stuff against them. So I really think spiritually I'm part of the alliance who's doing a lot of the fighting on different planes. So therefore I don't remember them all. I remember one time I was looking at a car and it was the funniest looking truck I ever saw. And then when I woke up, I realized it wasn't a car, it was a spacecraft.
Oh,
Okay, so our minds, when we bring this stuff over, can only comprehend what our minds can comprehend.
but they know, right,
Right.
exactly.
So I remember another dream. I was with my associates, friends. There's always a lot of love when you're with these people. And I was like in the back of a Jeep, but it was on a roller coaster. So imagine a Jeep Wrangler and I'm sitting on the back and it's wide open and I'm on this roller coaster going up and down the hills. Well, again, it wasn't a Jeep and it wasn't a roller coaster. We were dodging asteroids or planets or something. And it was just the way it felt. But my mind can't comprehend that because it's not ready to comprehend
Doesn't know it,
at
right?
the time. Right. Right. So we can all soul travel. You just have to ask to, and try the U if you want. Okay. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It's just a form of meditation. Om only
But
takes you
the
to the
thing,
third
my
plane.
question that is about it though, like, are all dreams that?
No,
Would you, no, not all dreams
nope.
are that.
Some you're in your training, some you're in, there's temples. There are what we would call schools on different planes. So sometimes you might be with a group of people, you might be on a campus, you might be in a temple, you might be going to the Akashic records, you may be remembering a past life that is needed from the Akashic records. So there's not one set type of dream. There's many types of dreams, and it's up to you to figure out what type of dream you're having.
Gotcha.
And you can also request information. Like when you go to bed tonight, okay, you can sit down and say, please show me a past life that affects this life the most. Because not all our past lives affect each lives. Oh, that's one thing I can tell you to do. So you can talk to your Akashic records. So you can go into a meditation, and during the meditation, you can go innate. I command you to now remember only the happy times of past lives. And you can't eliminate the bad times, but I want you to put them in the back so I don't remember. And you can talk to yourself so that you only remember the good times and not the bad times. Because we're programmed in the old world, which we were all born in the old world, to remember the negative stuff and forget the good. And now we have to train ourselves to remember the good and not the negative. But you have to command your body, your innate, your higher self to change that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Before
you
you go to
want-
sleep?
Pardon me?
Are you saying before sleep?
You can do it before sleep. I like to do the stuff during the meditation.
Okay.
Actually, that was a Cryon meditation that they took us through, part of the Circle of 12. He does a lot of that healing and stuff, but I've done it with other groups. I mean, if you want, I can do a meditation sometime. If people that listen to this, if they let me know, also with the recording, if I get enough people, I can do a meditation, because I know
Yeah, I
Chris
would
is
love
doing
that.
meditations now, and I can
Yeah,
start
that'd
doing
be
some
great.
healing meditations.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome, Dave.
And then we can work on different areas. I can look at them. But I highly recommend you go to cryonmasters.com,
CRYON?
KRYON.
Oh, KRYON. Okay.
It's not for everybody. All right. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't resonate, no problem. Don't force yourself.
Okay.
But go into Healing Wednesdays, and then the free Wednesdays, there'll be members only, and then free, and then listen to one. And
Okay.
and there's 2 different meditations in there, and try them. You know, you can get 2 years worth of, so you can get 24 free sessions, and each one's about an hour and a half long. And it'll give you a good idea of what's there, and it'll give you an idea of taking command of what's going on. That's just what I find. I also follow Adironda, which is Marilyn, channels Adironda, and she's a little different with what she does. All her stuff is paid. There's no free stuff out there. Cryon's got every channel Cryon has ever done that's not the Healing Wednesday is free. So there's 20 years worth of channels on his website.
Is this Cryon a website, or is it like a
An entity.
Facebook or?
No, it's a website, cryonmasters.com.
Okay.
Lee Carroll is the channel for Cryon. Cryon is not just one entity. Cryon is a group of entities, and they've been here many times. So from what Cryon has said is, it was the burning bush that Moses was talking to.
Oh,
So Moses, in Moses's time, the only 2 things that created light was fire or lightning.
mhm.
So if a entity of a different vibration came in front of him and was bright with light, it had to be fire. So the Bible's written as, remember, it's metaphors, okay, that Moses talked to a burning bush. No, Moses talked to an entity that Moses understood as a burning bush. Just like George Washington used to go in the woods and talk to an Indian all the time. The spirit of an Indian.
Mhm.
There's many encounters of that. So Cryon has been here since 88, I think, 89, because our energy was changing. And Cryon has only positive things to say about the future. He says our future is phenomenal, and we're on track to where we're going, where we need to go.
Well, there's some good news.
Oh yeah. Hey, there's lots of good news. We just have to get past the nonsense. Just remember,
Right.
everything's pantomime. All right. Everything in the world going on right now is pantomime. It's to wake people up. If you connect to yourself, and maybe I'll hold a session on doing kinetic testing, to teach people how to do the kinetic testing. I'd like to get more than 2 or 3 people on. I mean, I don't mind doing it for 2 or 3, but I'd like to see some more people get involved, because the more we have, the better the group will be to do this stuff. So I can teach you to do kinetic testing, and then you can start talking to your higher self. Not always accurate, because timelines change. So let's looking at a timeline. if you're gonna buy a car, and Rhonda Burns uses it with getting a stain on a dress, all right, but we'll talk about buying a car. So when you say I'm gonna go car shopping, you got a whole bunch of timelines that open. Each finger is a timeline. All right, so we got all these timelines. So these first, the timelines are brand. And then after brand, a couple might merge. Now you're down to model. And then a couple might merge, and now you have to pick color. And then it'll merge, and when you finally buy the car, it's no longer 5 timelines, it's 1. So when you speak to your higher self and you speak and you try to channel, as long as you're clear and your ego's not getting involved, what happens is that you have all these timelines in front of you. So if somewhere along the line somebody changes their mind or makes a different decision than what the timeline was showing, what was told doesn't necessarily happen. So that's why when you do these things, they're accurate, but for certain things they're not always accurate. Just like the timeline, our timelines with what's been going on with the reset and the Sarah Jessara and everything else, that timeline has changed so many times. There was a time last March or April, no, it was April, tax time. I printed off tax forms for my mother. We both read it that she had a credit on the tax form. I printed it out, I laid it on the table, we both saw it. The next day the paper was gone, and when I went online, she owed money.
Oh my God.
All right, that's how much the timeline changed. If I hadn't seen that with somebody else, I would have thought I was crazy. All right, so that we've been on bouncing timelines all over the place right now.
I believe that for sure. Wow.
So I'm going to stop recording now.